Hello and welcome back to Sorare Assist. So today I'm going to be drafting my Fantasy Premier League team, guys. This is going to be my initial draft, of course, because all the players and the prices are now ready to go. So if you like this video, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you've not signed up to Fantasy Premier League yet, you can of course get involved with that today. There is a link in the description. Or if you want to check out any other fantasy football products, there's plenty out there now, guys, including Sorare, Ultimate Champions and Stocks FC. Links to all this information are in the description. Now, I've actually been playing the Fantasy Premier League since its initial launch. As you can see, these are all the entries I've done, going all the way back to the 2006-07 season. Now, if some of you guys have been playing this Fantasy Premier League for that long, you'll know that Cristiano Ronaldo was the player to have around this time. Everyone had him as captain back then. It was, of course, banging in goals and assists for Manchester United. But these are all my points, all the seasons gone by. These are my ranks as well. My best rank by the looks of this was 74,000 in the 2008-2009 season. So let's get on with it then, guys. Let's go ahead and pick my fantasy team for the upcoming season 2023-24. So here we are then on the squad selection page, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So let's go ahead and start picking some players for my team then. So I'm going to start with the goalkeepers. I'm going to also look at the fixtures as well. So I'm going to head over to the Fantasy Premier League website. This is going to give us this fixture ticker here, which is a good reference just to see the sort of fixtures that teams have got. Now, in terms of goalkeepers, I do like to usually go for a pretty cheap goalkeeper. So let's have a look at some sort of middle-of-the-road teams where the cheap goalkeeper might be fairly cheap. So Brighton look to have a pretty decent start there. Home to Luton, away to Wolves, home to West Ham, at home to Newcastle. So those first three games are pretty good. Everton don't look too bad as well, but whether they're going to have a good season or not is another question. Got Man United there, but we don't know who's their goalkeeper yet, do we? Newcastle are at home to Aston Villa. That might be a decent one. We've got previous results here as well. If you hover over it, it gives you the previous results between these two teams. As you can see at home, previous two fixtures, Newcastle have kept a clean sheet there as well, so that's interesting. We've also got Sheffield United, fairly good game first of all against Crystal Palace. So some pretty interesting calls there. Newcastle is looking tempting again though. I know they've got Man City in the game after that. The other one was Brighton as well. Bournemouth are at home to West Ham, that could be a decent one. And Sheffield United as well against Crystal Palace. So let's have a look at some of the goalkeepers. So Nick Pope is 5.5. Who else was they? Got Raya for Brentford, but I think they've got Tottenham in the first game. Who was the other ones? Bournemouth was one, wasn't it? Neto. So they've got Neto then. So 4.5. So that one could be an interesting one. We've got Sanchez here for Brighton. So either Sanchez or Steele is going to be the number one there. Or even potentially for Bruggen, actually. He's just signed, hasn't he, the youngster. So that would be... we'll have to wait a bit nearer to the season to see who's going to be the first choice there. So to me, I think it's looking probably a potential good idea to pick two goalkeepers up who are 4.5. Now, Neto, is he going to be... He's going to be the first choice, isn't he, for Bournemouth next season. I think he did pretty well last season as well. So I'm going to actually put Neto in one of the goalkeeper slots, so add him. And I'm also going to put in one of these Brighton goalkeepers as well, with them having that easier fixture in the first fixture at home to Luton. So that could be an interesting one. So I'm actually going to put Verbruggen in. Now I don't know who's going to be the first choice there yet. It could be Verbruggen. He's obviously a new signing. Good goalkeeper as well. He's come from Belgium. So there we go. We've got my two goalkeepers there. Obviously I can rotate them as well depending on fixtures. So I think that's pretty good. Pretty cheap there for my goalkeepers as well. So I think next up I'm just going to go to the forwards and just pick some forwards that I definitely want in my team. Now I think Haaland is probably a definite here that you're going to be wanting in your fantasy football team. He's going to obviously be scoring lots of goals next season. I don't think he's going to score as many as he did last season. I don't think that's sustainable. He's still going to be bagging plenty of goals, of course. Kane is a bit of a question mark at the moment and whether he's going to be staying. Gabriel Jesus looks pretty good at €8 million. I think that looks a pretty good price. And Isaac as well could be good. We've also got Lukaku for Chelsea. He could be a fairly good option. Obviously, there's going to be some new signings of players as well coming through the door for teams. But I think Haaland is a definite. We'll just have a quick look at the fixtures. So they're away to Burnley, at home to Newcastle, away to Sheffield United, at home to Fulham, away to West Ham. That looks pretty favourable to me. So I'm going to put Haaland in. I think he's a must-have. I think everyone's going to be picking him as well. So obviously, if he does start banging in the goals as he did last season, then you're going to want him in your team. Gabriel Jesus is another good one, I would say. Arsenal have got Notts Forest at home in the first game, then away to Crystal Palace and at home to Fulham. So a fairly good fixture to start with for them. So he's another one that I want in my team as well. Now, in terms of the final slot, you're going to need a cheaper player here, I would say. João Pedro could be a good one for Brighton. He's a new signing for them. He's a good player as well. Come from Watford. He's a decent player, this guy. 5.5 is looking pretty cheap, so I will bear that in mind. And just looking through the rest of the players, there's none really that really stick out to me. So João Pedro could be a good one there for that final slot. But I will go on to the midfielders next, just to see which other players I want in my team and see what the fixtures are looking like as well. So De Bruyne is potentially a good one, potentially to link up with Haaland as well. That could be a good shout. So he's looking very tempting. So I think I am going to put De Bruyne in there. He's obviously injured, but I'm hoping he's going to be back for the new season. Should be able to thought. And the second midfield slot, Rashford is an option, but I don't think he's going to reach the heights that he did last season. I think Bruno Fernandes is looking a much more appealing shout here. So I'm going to stick in Bruno Fernandes in there as well. Now, Arsenal players. I would like an Arsenal player, one that would link up with Gabriel Jesus. We've got Martinelli and Saka are the standout picks here. Saka is slightly more than Martinelli, but he is a quality player, of course. So I am going to go with Saka, I think, in this position here. I'm going to put Saka in. So now I've got a good little link up there between Saka and Jesus. And I've also got De Bruyne to link up with Haaland. And Bruno Fernandes, who was usually ever consistent in the Fantasy Premier League. Now, I've used quite a lot of my cash here, as you can see. And I still need to pick my defenders and the other players as well. What I'm going to go for is the old strategy of trying to pick a really cheap player in one of these final slots that I'm not going to be playing most weeks. Just someone that can come on, maybe pick up a few points if my main starters don't play. So the money remaining at the minute is 41.5 million, which leaves me an average of 5 million per player. Now obviously I've got some big guns here. This is the main stronghold of my team. These are going to be my star players, hopefully. So in terms of the forward, I think I'm going to stick in that João Pedro for Brighton. I'm going to stick him in there. So I think he's a pretty good outside pick there. And then Brighton, I've got a good first home fixture as well against Luton. So this could be a really good shout if João Pedro does start. He's capable of getting goals and assists. So that would suggest that I'm going to potentially be going with a 3-4-3 formation. So I am going to now move on to the defenders. And let's have a look at some of the defender picks here. I'm going to filter this to defence and just have a look at some of the fixtures. Of course, Brighton is another standout here again. And of course, I've got their goalkeeper as well. So it probably makes sense to have a Brighton defender here. So I've filtered this to defenders already. Let's just have a look at the Brighton defenders. So we've got Lewis Dunk. He's usually good on FPL. We've also got Estupiñán as well, of course. So if we just filter this to Brighton, let's just have a look at some of their players here. So these are the defenders, the main defenders. We've got Veldman as well. I think he did pretty well last season as well. Total points, 95. Was he playing quite a lot of the games? He started 25, yeah. Didn't do too bad. Just have a look at these guys. So Estupiñán had 31 starts last season and he got 128 points. And Dunk had 36 starts and got 112. So Estupiñán looks a good shout here, and even Veldman potentially as well. That would be two potential cheap options there in defence. So I only want to pick one of these really. So I'm actually going to go with... I think Estupiñán is probably a solid pick there. So I am going to go with Estupiñán as one of my defenders there. So in terms of fixtures then, Bournemouth have got a fairly decent fixture at home. And they've got a couple of difficult ones there though. And Chelsea as well. I expect Chelsea to improve. So probably don't want to pick one of their defenders. Arsenal have got pretty good fixtures to start. Everton again don't look too bad. Man City have always got a chance of keeping a clean sheet, of course. Man United are home to Wolves, so that might be an interesting one. Sheffield United looks like to have a fairly difficult start as well. So let's just go through these and just have a look at some of these teams then potentially. So Arsenal defenders, let's have a look at those. We've got Holding, Tierney, Tommy Yassi for all 4.5. Main guys, we've got Gabriel, 5 million. Looking pretty good there. So have a look at the Chelsea players, just see how much they are. 5.5. So they're still quite a lot considering how bad they was last season. But I don't expect them to improve this season. Everton, who have they got? They're all 4.5. Now they should hopefully improve this season. Liverpool, let's have a look at their defenders. They're all pretty heavily priced, I would say. Top targets would probably Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and Virgil. But too much really for my liking there. Don't want us to really be spending more than 5 million on a defender. We've got Man City, Akanji, doesn't look too bad, 5 million. How many points did he score last season? 82. Started 24 of the games, but he's been pretty much ever present. Ruben Diaz, obviously 5.5. Ake, 22. There's also the Pep Roulette situation as well, isn't there? There's always that risk. So maybe don't look at Man City. Man United, let's have a look at those. Dalot is 5 million. Varane, 5 million. Martinez, 5 million. That looks pretty good. 81 points for him. Dalot, I don't know if he's going to be first choice over Wan-Bissaka. Martinez is probably the certain to start, I would say, for Man United. Newcastle could be a good option because obviously a couple of their players are looking pretty cheap here. So Botman is 4.5. Ben is 4.5 as well. That was both good last season for me. I am tempted to actually go with some Newcastle defenders here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Shah and Botman there in those two slots. So that's pretty good. So that's potentially my starting three there. Now I'm going to move back onto the midfielders now because I do need another starting midfielder here. And then I'll fill these rest of the slots in with some cheap options. So 21.5 is the remaining. So that gives me an average of 5.37 million on each player. So obviously these slots here are going to be filled in with cheaper options. So I'll probably look to do that first. So we'll go to defenders. Now the minimum I want here really, I want someone who's 4 million ideally here. But I'll just have a look if there's any actual decent options in the 4 million bracket. Probably not. There's no real names that are really standing out here. So I am going to filter it to the 4.5. We've got Holding. Tina here. Is he going to be playing more minutes at Arsenal? I think he was injured last season, wasn't he? Or is he potentially moving on? That's a bit of a risk. Cash did well last season for Aston Villa, I believe. 20 starts, yeah. Didn't do too bad. Not the best scorer, though. Brentford. Brighton. Veldman. Did he play a few games last season? 25, yeah. So he was a potential option previously. So I might be tempted to go with Veldman here, actually. So I've already got the goalkeeper and another Brighton defender, of course. So that could be tempting. So I think I'm going to put him in. I'm going to put Veldman in. And in this final slot, again, I'm going to look for another 4.5 player. And I'm tempted to go with another Newcastle player here, you know. Let's have a look, see who else there is. So Chelsea, no one's standing out there. Everton, Fulham, Liverpool. Don't know if they're not going to get any minutes, are they? Man United have got Lindelof here, potentially. Malacia. No, obviously he's not going to get that many games. It's going to be Luke Shaw. Wan-Bissaka could get some minutes, though. But you never know if he's going to start or Dalot, so I don't want to be dealing with that risk. I think I'm actually tempted to put in Ben here, because he played plenty of minutes last season for Newcastle, and he could potentially play a lot of minutes this year as well. There's no other really Newcastle players that I don't think I'll be getting in my team, so I'm going to put Ben in that final slot. That's giving me some solid options there. Brighton and Newcastle defence. Majority of the time I probably would go with the back three of Newcastle, which worked out fantastically for me last season. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Now we're going to move on to the midfielders. So I've got 12 million now for two midfielders, which looks pretty good to me, really. So let's just have a look at these midfielders. So one of the midfielders is obviously going to be the cheapest I can find. So I'm going to filter this to 5 million. Let's just see if there's anybody here. There's Pepe for Arsenal. He's obviously returning from his loan spell. And that would leave me 7.5 million for a player, which would be good. What else have we got here? Anyone stands out? Brooks. Now I've got Brooks, David Brooks. Now he was injured for quite a lot of last season, wasn't he? And I think he did come back from injury last season, but he could do well potentially for Bournemouth next season. So he could be an outside pick there. We've got Kluivert as well, 5 million for Bournemouth. That could be a decent one. Justin Kluivert, who was of course the son of Patrick Kluivert, the Netherlands legend. So he could be a good option there for Bournemouth, potentially an outsider pick. There's a new signing. We've got Salcido as well. Now a few clubs are interested in Salcido. A few big clubs as well. So I think he's looking like the shout here. Actually, I've got too many players from Brighton here. So I'm going to have to get rid of Veldman. So I've already got 3 players from Brighton, haven't I? I've got the goalkeeper and defender. And obviously João Pedro. So I can't really have Salcido. Which is a bit of a shame actually. So it might change my thinking here slightly. So let's just go back to midfielders again. Filter this to 5 million. Brooks was the other potential outlier as well. But I think Salcido is looking good. Because like I say, he could get that move. So who have Brighton got? They've got Luton at home in the first game. Well, what I'll do is I'll put Brooks in for the time being. So I'll put Brooks in there. Now I need to find a new defender as well. Because obviously I can't have Veldman. So I have too many players from Brighton. But I'll put Brooks in. Now obviously if Salcido does get a move to a different club, that would enable him to put him in this spot here. So I think that's a good strategy there. So I'll put Brooks in for the time being because he's a young player. Should come back next season, hopefully. Get a few goals and assists if I do need to keep him in the team. So I think that's a good option there. Do want João Pedro there up front for Brighton. I think he's a good option. Like I say, if Salcido does get a move, then I will probably replace him with Brooks before the season starts. Now, I just need another defender in here. So I've got 12 million remaining. So if I was to put in a defender here of 4.5 or below, so let's just put someone in here. So I'm going to put Senesi in, just so I've got that Bournemouth player to link up with Neto on an easy fixture for them. So we've got that. So that leaves me 7.5 million for my final midfielder, who is of course going to be a starter as well most weeks in my team. So this needs to be a decent player here who's getting plenty of minutes. So 7.5 million. So we've got a farts here for Arsenal. Yeah, I've got enough slots as well. So I've only got 2 Arsenal players. That could be a good option actually to link up with Jesus and Saka. So that one could be a good one. We've got Foden for Man City and Grealish. They both don't play every single game though. There's always the risk of Pep Roulette. Maddison could be an option as well. But I think his effectiveness is going to be depending on whether Kane stays or not. Because obviously if Kane stays, he's probably going to be getting plenty of assists. So for now, I will probably skip that one. We've got Szoboszlai for Liverpool as well. Now he's a youngster, good player. Don't know if he's going to be starting though straight away for Liverpool. So that's a little bit of risk there. Same with Mount potentially. We've got Pascal Gross for Brighton. But as we know, I've already got too many of those players. We're going quite far down the list here now. So I think Havertz is probably looking good. He is capable of getting goals and assists, of course. His new signing for Arsenal as well. So I think he could be a good potential option here. Let's just go on to Grealish. Started 23 games, 5 goals, 10 assists. Yeah, so he's obviously a good option, but there is always that risk. So I am actually going to go with Havertz here. So we're going to add him in. So I've got 3 attacking players there for Arsenal. Think that team is looking pretty solid, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and enter team. I'm going to put my usual team that I always call my teams on Fantasy Football. Victoria's Secret. So I'm going to put my team in there. And then I just need to choose the club I support, which is Man United. And then click enter squad. Right, fantastic. So, there is my squad. Now, in terms of the first fixture, I'm going to want Havertz in there for Brooks. They're at home to Nottingham Forest, so that looks really favourable. Just in case one of these other players don't play, because I can't really drop. Now, Pedro, I'm going to put in the team as well for one of these defenders. So I'm going to take out Senesi there and have a back 3 there. So we've got Pedro up front there for Brighton at home to Luton, which are of course one of the new boys, so I think that's looking really, really good there. And then I've got 2 Newcastle defenders, so Shah and Botman, who are home to Aston Villa. Could go over back 3 of all Newcastle, but I think Brighton looked to have a fairly favourable fixture there at home to Luton. So I'm also going to take Neto out, I think, for Bruggen, for Brighton, looks a better goalkeeper choice again at home to Luton. So that is looking pretty good to me. In terms of captain, now a lot of people are probably going to go with Haaland away to Burnley, but I'm actually going to probably take a risk and go with Gabriel Jesus as my captain. And then vice captain, I'm actually going to go with Saka. So that is my team, guys. I'm just going to reduce this a bit so you can see the full team. There we go. So that is my first draft of my Fantasy Premier League team for the upcoming Premier League season that kicks off, of course, in August. I think that's looking pretty solid. I'm sure there will be some changes depending on transfers and things like that. And like I say, if Salcido does get a move to a decent club, I'll probably put him in for Brooks. But yeah, overall, pleased with this team. I think it's looking solid. I was quite surprised that I was managed to fit in Saka, Haaland, Fernandes, De Bruyne and Gabriel Jesus in my initial squad Fantasy Premier League. So yeah, looking pretty good here. I'm pretty chuffed with that team. I think it's looking a pretty solid team for the start of the Premier League season. Probably going to stick with this one as well. And you guys, of course, can pick your teams now on the Fantasy Premier League. It is live, like I say, so you can go ahead and pick your teams. Links in the description of this video. And if you wanted to check out other fantasy football games as well, there is a lot out there now, guys, including Sorare. There's a link in the description for that as well. Stocks FC and Ultimate Champions. These are all new fantasy football games that are coming to the market. So you can check those out. There is links in the description for those. But anyway, thanks for watching today. Good luck in the upcoming Premier League season. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook. And I'll catch you again on the next episode.